thing I remember from the highlights is the three-pointer from the corner and the entire Memorial student section almost spilling out onto the floor. I thought they were going to run over poor Jack Quirk.
I was so full of adrenaline and bewilderment at, what was happening in that moment that I was literally shaking.
And right after Dave finished screaming his head off, Sam Natty, who was doing color commentary, "Oh my God!" I mean,
and they got it to him, and he got an open look. And when he released it, I would have bet the mortgage on this house we're in right now that he got it off in time.
He lost control, and they're not going to get it off. Bingaman hits a shot. Does it count?
DeRozier kicked by Litz. Litz gets away from him. Litz is going in. It's over.
They knock it away. Kabongo for three in the tie. He tied it up. He tied it up. I think what makes the playoffs so special, especially here in New Hampshire, is the crowds. You go to these games and the student body's there, the community's there, everybody's all hyped up. It's that one and done, situation.
I think the best part of what we do is we're there from the beginning. A lot of these teams were there from opening night all the way till the end. I remember seeing Groveton the year that they won their championship, Marcons. And we were there opening night against Woodsville, and then there you are at Plymouth State months later. So,
for most of these kids, except for a select few that, get to go play college basketball, high school basketball is, the pinnacle of their basketball career. And, all these kids have been playing since, they were little, and they put all this hard work in with most of these teammates that they've been playing with for years. And the goal since they were little kids is, to be a state champion.
Kind of in the first round games, but in the quarterfinals when you really start to see the intensity pick up and you can tell that the kids understand what they're playing for. It's, just as a broadcaster, you feel nervous, even if you don't have a rooting interest in one team or another. You just,
And man, it means a lot to those people in the North Country to be able to go there and support their local high school and support the team and the kids, and it's people of all ages. You see people who may have played 50 years ago and they're still going every single year and making the trip. It's like the closed "going to the game" sign on the window, and I just think that that's a real cool aspect of it.
The stands are more packed. There's coaches from other teams at the games. There's players from other teams. It's especially once you get to Durham or SNU or PSU, it really becomes it feels like a big fight. It feels like a main event. Like there's a buzz in the air before the game.
And so, for us, I think it's great to be there in the end, whether it's Plymouth or Manchester, or Southern New Hampshire, or UNH, where their hearts are getting broken or they're winning a championship they're never going to forget about for the rest of their life. Epping was the defending champs coming in. Sean Young had led them to a title in their first year. They had Colby Wilson, and then they had Jackson Rivers, was only sophomore, then Dylan DeRozier. So this was a really, really good basketball team. But Wilton had beaten them during the season, and at that time of the year, the Carrier brothers had really come on, Ty and Trey Carrier.
Yeah, that Wilton-Epping game was, a situation where you had a team that really had never been there before, Wilton-Lyndeborough, and everybody knew about Jordan Litz. And
I'll never forget hearing about this kid from Texas, Jordan Litz, who had moved over to Wilton-Lyndeborough. And every year there's a 6'5" kid who's moving into town. He ends up being a skateboarder. He doesn't even move into town. But this ended up the rare time. It ended up being the real deal. And this kid was as good as any Division IV player I've ever seen in New Hampshire.
And that's big. He's going to be the difference today.
So I wasn't able to be there, so I kind of had to follow that game on Twitter. And I was following, the NHsportspage Twitter feed and just reading some of the stuff that was coming up, and it seemed like a back and forth game. And One team would make a run.
Ray dials it up. Duncan Ray, 9-3 Wilton.
And then the other team would answer.
On the push, got Colby Wilson spotting up from the corner. Boom! Colby Wilson, my man. 11-8.
We thought it was going to be a good championship game, but early on in that game, Colby Wilson just put on a show. I may have lost it a little bit with Colby Wilson.
Wilson's got to get up. 2-1. Here it goes. Deep. Oh, no! Why did I know that was going in?
That's in his range.
Why did I know that was going in? 25-23 Wilton at the half. My man!
I might have gotten a little carried away.
Pumps his fist. Jordan Litz, 3-1.
It was a show, and Litz just kept him in it. Jordan Litz just kept him in it all the way. Whether it was assists or whether it was defense, because he was the best defender in Division IV. He was like a Michael Jordan in that he was the best offensive player. He's the best defensive player in the division. But that game just went up and down, and I remember it just being swings high one way or the other.
And right now is open. Jackson Rivers. Oh, rattles it home. Bad shot. No, good shot. 37-33. Big run by the champs. Big possession by Wilton. Oh, good take. Carrier's been so good.
They got to get a stop here. They got to keep it at 4.
39-35, 40 seconds to go here in the third. We have seen momentum swing big time.
Epping was up 6 going into the fourth quarter, and you never felt like they had control. But they were the team that was carrying the play. And then late, what happened is Colby Wilson had just gone off, and that's when Kenny Garner made the move, the head coach, to put Jordan Litz on Colby Wilson. And Jordan Litz in the fourth quarter decided, I'm winning this game on both ends of the floor. And it's absolutely what he did.
He's going to the rack. Finishes at 1. Whoa. That could tie it up. Rifled it. 47 seconds left.
The out-of-bounds play, I remember it. Epping got a rebound, and I believe it was DeRozier and Jackson Rivers, and they both grabbed the ball at the same time, so they traveled.
Carrier, baseline drive, hangs. No good. Rebound, back up, no good. DeRozier fights for it with... DeRozier and Rivers fought for it, and they traveled.
It was a big turnover, and you could see the Epping kids were kind of rattled a little bit. But Sean, I remember Sean Young, their coach, telling them, calm down. But quickly, what Litz did is he got the ball inbounds immediately from the official. He threw it in, and he went over to that corner. And I remember we could barely even see. John Kesty was doing the game for us. And in the corner, we could barely even see what was going on. Litz had it and drained a 3 right in front of his own bench.
He gets it, takes it, makes it! Oh, he made it!
And I remember the kid on camera just looking right at our camera like with this look of amazement. A young call timeout. They were down, but they had a last possession.
This is it. Bullock. Litz is on Colby Wilson.
You have to know where Colby Wilson is this whole time.
What?
Dylan DeRozier had the ball, and it was pretty clear he wanted to get it to Colby Wilson. You got to have Colby Wilson taking that last shot, the kind of game he had, and it had to come down to Litz versus Wilson. But he never got the ball. Jordan Litz read it, and as he did that whole game, he just made every single play when he had to.
Litz gets away from him. Litz is going in. It's over. Wilton's going to win the state championship.
I'm always going to remember, 5 straight points. He wins it. Dave screaming his head off.
5 straight points to end it. He wins it.
Right after Dave finished screaming his head off, Sam Natty, who was doing color commentary, oh my God. I mean, when I heard Sam say that, I chuckled. I almost fell off my chair.
It was really special to just be a very, very small part of that championship. And I got to tell you, Jordan Litz, who just ended up just being an outstanding kid as well, it was something you're going to remember for a long time. People are not going to forget who Jordan Litz is in New Hampshire.
The Memorial Central semifinal game from 3 years ago now was the most exciting basketball game, that I've ever been a part of.
Coming in the semifinal, the Central team was as good as any team I've ever covered, and they have 4 kids who are currently playing college basketball at the Division II level, so they were outstanding. I just remember being in Doc Wheeler's office that morning, the morning of the game, and he said, Memorial's a scary team. They've got talented with Kabongo and Trayvon Mon, but
I actually thought this game was going to be a wipeout. I thought Central just had such a loaded team that I thought they were going to mop the floor with Memorial. Memorial was talented, they could score, but they were inconsistent as all get out. And
no one thought Central, would even be touched that year. They blew everybody out. And Memorial gave them a game. I mean, they were really taking it to them in the first half. And Trayvon Mon scored 30 in the game, and most of them were in the first half on way downtown three-pointers.
Line, right side Mon. Mon way downtown, knocks it down! That was about 30 feet away!
somehow that Memorial team every other year finds a way to get to Durham. And, you don't know every year. You don't know if they're going to score 35 when they take the floor, if they're going to score 135. This is the night they could score 135. And
left side Mon, another three. He knocks another one down.
And when he wasn't shooting and nailing three-pointers, he was driving to the basket, getting fouled, and won plays. He was just, unconscious in that game, especially in the first half.
I remember checking Twitter, and somebody put a score out there early on. It was Memorial 27-11 over Central, and I specifically remember saying, somebody screwed that up. It's backwards. Because there was absolutely no possible way in my mind that Central was losing 27-11 to Memorial. But they were.
And Central didn't let them get too far away. Memorial would take a lead. Central would make a run. They had great players too. I mentioned the Martin brothers. People always talk, when they talk about that game, about the game that Trayvon Mon had. But they forget that Joey Martin outdid him. He had 36 in that game.
Memorial going to win this thing? Because they were up big, and Central's going to make a run. It's going to be, they'll take care of business. And Memorial just kept leading, but then slowly Central was chipping away.
Central got it right there. Up ahead, Joey Martin for three in the tie. Tie game! Joey Martin!
I remember asking Doc Wheeler after it was over, I said, what did you say to your kids? And he said, I had to remind him, we're the best team. We're undefeated. That's why we're wearing the white jersey here. Keep doing what you're doing and keep pressing forward.
Martin, baseline jumper, 15-footer goes. He's feeling it. He's in double figures with 11.
But Kabongo really kind of took over after Trayvon Mon fouled out. He fouled out early on kind of a suspect, what I think was a suspect call for his fifth foul. And it happened like a minute into the fourth quarter. So they went the rest of the fourth quarter in both overtimes without Mon. But they didn't miss a beat because Kabongo stepped up.
67-60. Kabongo in the lane, turnaround, got it. The teardrop goes. Kabongo's gonna have to take over. He's got 12.
And they made several steals down the stretch.
With 16 points, 76-60. Steal by Memorial, they're still alive. Bounce pass, Kabongo scored at the foul. Could be a 3-point game.
The game, it was a 5-point deficit, and it was, I believe, Wade Gopp went coast to coast and laid one in, and Central really was just kind of letting them go. They didn't want to foul, and that made it a 3-point game.
I remember Central having to inbound the ball. I think it was John or Joey Martin coming out with it, and they got poked away from behind. And that's such a Memorial play. That's what they do. They still do. They take chances. They go for steals, and it's high risk. It's high reward.
From John Martin, it went right to Kabongo.
In stride, drilled it.
And Kabongo stepped up and hit a top of the key three to tie the game and send it to overtime.
Corner, and the entire Memorial student section almost spilling out onto the floor. I thought they were going to run over poor Jack Quirk, but.
Going to overtime! We are going to overtime! Kabongo Nalakalongi nails the three after the steal. The miracle has happened.
the game went to overtime, and it was, in the in the 90s at that point.
15 seconds left to go. They need a 3 to tie. Here it is, Philibert on the way. Tie now! Philibert sticks the 3. We're tied at 88.
Went to double overtime. And it was
4 seconds. It's going to be a 3 for the win. It's short. Double overtime. We're going to double overtime.
in the hundreds, and then just, almost forgot I was sick for a few minutes, just, wearing out my phone, refreshing Twitter.
I was up at Plymouth that night. I remember I was doing the Division IV Final Four. McGuiza calls me the John the Baptist of Division IV basketball. I've never wanted to be someplace else more in all my time doing this because I knew I was missing something historic.
Like great teams do, to kind of, basically survive the momentum and the frenzy that Memorial was throwing at them. And
Martin, outlet pass to his brother, up ahead Kelly, he's going to lay it in, and that'll do it. Central 99, Memorial 91.
And Pat Welch sticks his head up into the press box, and he saw me up there, and he's like, what an unbelievable game this, and he just like popped out of the blue. I couldn't see anybody walking up the stairs or anything, but the look on his face, he just had a huge smile ear to ear. He got caught up with it, and he didn't have, any vested interest in that game.
It was really a game for the ages. Sorry I couldn't have been there. I wish I would have chugged some Pedialyte and, down a sleeve of crackers and been in attendance for that one. But what a show for New Hampshire basketball fans.
Double overtime. The student body rushes the court, and Central's moving on to the championship game. Their unbeaten season intact.
Portsmouth Brady was probably one of the craziest games I've, ever experienced in real life.
So that Brady Portsmouth game was the game everybody wanted to see. They played a really good regular season game. It went down to the wire.
But I had covered the first Brady Portsmouth game. It was at Bishop Brady, and Sean Parham hit a runner at the buzzer to defeat Brady.
Time, Parham still with it, throws it up at the buzzer. Sean Parham hit it. It counts.
But that was a rematch that everybody, I think, wanted to see, Bishop Brady against Portsmouth.
The people going into that thing felt it's Jim Mulvey versus 23-year-old Cole Etten, because we used to make sure we said his age every time we talked about him back then. And so people thought it might be a coaching mismatch. But boy, Cole Etten did a good job.
And boy, did that game live up to the hype. Cody Graham was a freshman on that team. Joey Glim was a sophomore. And then so many great players in that game. Especially for Bishop Brady, you had the Bell brothers, Jordan Bell and Joe Bell and Brendan Johnson. And I think a lot of people forget they had a 6'6" kid at center that year, Aaron Svensson, who, kind of dominated at times in that basketball game.
I remember it was back and forth early. I think Portsmouth really kind of carried the play.
And a cheerleading event, I believe, here at Durham. Another Brady turnover as Graham brings it back the other way. Into the paint, spins around, and puts up a spectacular finish. Cody Graham feeds Glenn. Glenn trying to drive left baseline. What a move. And a nice soft touch with the one hand, and Joey Glenn has himself 4 points, and the lead is 10 again.
But they just could never put it away, and Bishop Brady just hung around.
Bell gets it and scores. I don't know if he threw it off somebody. I wasn't looking. I was looking down at my roster, and Bell made it a 1-point game again.
I just remember Portsmouth getting up big and thinking that Bishop Brady, they hadn't really been in that type of environment, thinking they were going to collapse, and Jordan Bell just would not let them.
Here's Jordan Bell. Can he finish? Yes, he can! And the foul!
I think one of the big parts of that game was Charlie LeHue fouling out. He was a first-team All-State guard for Portsmouth.
Bell's got 21. He's high man in the game. LeHue! Wipe it away! It's a charge! Charlie LeHue has just fouled out. The charge, his 5th.
He was terrific all season long, but he being out of the game was a huge, huge part of them, Portsmouth, not being able to put Bishop Brady away.
Got it away to Palm. Palm splits the defense, bounce pass. LeHue! Beautiful feed by Parham. It's a 9-point lead for Portsmouth.
You know, into the fourth quarter, Bishop Brady really had a mountain to climb, but you know, they never really panicked. I think it was, you know, the senior leadership that they had on that team.
Jordan Bell took it away from Graham. Bell casually goes to the basket and scores. And Bell's got the last 5 points in this game.
So I remember talking to Jim Mulvey after that game. We talked for about an hour on that day after that game. And I remember him saying that he had told the team, the only way they can beat us from the outside. He's like, Jordan Bell can beat us from the three-point line. Can't allow that to happen.
Quirk on the drive, bounce pass. Jordan, he'll try a three. It's good! The lead is cut in half. 56-53, Bell's got 24.
In that game, there was a couple of times where maybe they just gave him a step or a half a step and it was enough room for Bell to make the play, because he made play after play after play.
Bishop Brady came down and they were down 3, under a minute left, and Brennan Johnson, he went on the baseline, he drove, and as he drove, Jordan Bell came up to the right of him and he did the kind of, you know, pick pass off play. It gave just enough time for Jordan Bell to hit the tying 3. They shot in the corner where I was filming, and I have such a great shot of it, and then the reaction of the Bishop Brady crowd is just one of my favorite shots.
Jim Mulvey called timeout because Cody Graham had the ball in his hands as a freshman. And believe it or not, he actually, that's who he wanted to take that last shot, was a freshman. He trusted Cody more than anybody out on that floor to take it. But what he envisioned seeing is Jim always seeing the game 30 seconds ahead. He envisioned them, Cody driving, them doubling him, and then him kicking it out to a passer.
So during that last play, I'd actually started filming before the play started. And initially you see Brennan Johnson up on the player taking the ball out, and you see him eventually by Cole Etten, you know, tell him to back off and play off the ball. And that's such a little thing, but it turned out to be a big thing with Brennan Johnson, you know, stealing the ball.
Go at midcourt. They go into Glenn. And a steal! Johnson took it away!
I remember immediately as Portsmouth had to turn from offense to defense, and Sean Parham read it. Svensson was the center for Bishop Brady that year, and he threw the pass. And that's when Sean Parham had to decide, I'm getting back on D or I'm going for the steal. And it's a half a heartbeat decision. He went for the steal, which I don't think was a bad play, and he barely missed picking that thing off.
They go into Glenn. And a steal! Johnson took it away! And then he almost threw it away!
The ball went right over their head, right to Joe Bell. And I remember him coming in, and I remember in the moment thinking, this is the most difficult uncontested layup I've ever seen anyone take in my entire life.
Took it away! And then he almost threw it away. Joe Bell ahead.
Because the place was going bonkers, and the Bishop Brady crowd, his student section, was about 30 feet to his left as he laid the ball up and in.
And then the whole place erupted. It was crazy. It was an awesome atmosphere. And we had the camera shot, you know, just watching the video of the Brady student section, and they just went bananas.
And then he almost threw it away. Joe Bell at the back, plays it in. Brady's on top. Portsmouth might not have a chance.
Thing was, game wasn't over. They still had the inbound the ball. I remember Cody Graham yelling to Sean Parham, give it to me, give it to me. And Cody took the ball, 2 dribbles. Joe Bell had already run down the court celebrating, and Cody threw it dead on from 80 feet.
Three at the buzzer by Graham. Allen just short.
Damn it, if that thing didn't look like it was going in. I remember one of the referees who was behind the play, so we had the best view of it, saying, it looked good from my point of view.
That close, you know, a foot and a half away from being a totally different, you know, miracle game-winning shot. So it just shows you how in the split second, you know, just a little room here, a little room there, things can totally change.
Bishop Brady wins the championship, 58-56. They got a steal off the inbounds. Brendan Johnson fed it to Joe Bell. And Bell goes coast to coast for the lay-in.
Brady kids are celebrating. You know, I go to take my camera off the tripod so I can get, you know, some closer shots, and I was so full of adrenaline and bewilderment at, what was happening in that moment that I was literally shaking. You can see my camera shots. I'm trying to steady, but I was literally shaking.
And that was just a phenomenal game. I remember saying after the game that I was glad that there was another hour and a half before the next championship game, that Pinkerton-Londonderry game.
Thank goodness we got about an hour and a half break until the next game, because I don't know if I can continue at this point.
There's not a kid on Portsmouth that doesn't believe that they played the next day. Portsmouth would have beat them, but Jordan Bell got it done. Joe Bell made the play. Brendan Johnson made the steal. You got your three best players making it happen in the last couple of minutes. And the silver lining for Portsmouth, they haven't lost a game since. I remember talking to a Division I coach that year who said, it's wide open, it's probably just going to come down to Doc Wheeler and Tim Goodrich again on the last Saturday, and that's exactly what had happened. I remember people that Saturday, the anticipation was Lebanon, Portsmouth, two undefeated teams trying to go 22-0, and actually the Classic was the one that happened first. It was the noon game between Central and Merrimack.
Central, this wasn't like the Central team that won 2 years ago. The Martin brothers and Brett Hansen. This was, the big three and some role players, Jalen Leroy, Evan McDonald, John McCory.
2 years before, when Central had made it to the championship, I went to shoot a preview, and during their practice, Evan McDonald, being a sophomore, he hit this half-court shot while they're doing simulations to win the game for his team, and during practice. And that's just my memory of him. He had a great shot, and he had range, and he was just a great kid and a great all-around player.
Merrimack, they had a real solid team. A senior-laden team. Zach Kerr and Ian Roberts and Andrew Wojak and a couple guys that are still on the team now, Danny McKillop and Ian Cummings were a big part of that team.
Inside the free throw line, bounce pass, Baraka, kick out Leroy, corner three. Leroy hit it in, he was fouled. Danny McKillop.
It was just one of these it was almost like an old school prize fight where one team would just go up by a few.
Been firing it up there with regularity early on. Here's Osiah Lewis for three, and the freshman drains the three. The moment is not too big. 18-12.
And then they just battle back.
Cummings on the right-hand side. Cummings didn't start the game, came off the bench. Cummings trying to drive into the lane and squeezes off the shot. In traffic. Ian Cummings puts Merrimack on top by 120.
The thing I remember about that team was Zach Kerr. He hit a ton of shots as a senior, and he could really rise to the occasion. And on that Saturday, and even in the semifinal before, he was tremendous.
He's got a clock in front of him. You can see 10 seconds left now. Kerr with it, middle of the floor, gonna fire three. Good, Zach Kerr cuts the lead in half, 15-12. Final seconds, Merrimack deflects it out of bounds.
I just remember the game being close throughout, and really thinking Merrimack was gonna, maybe Lady Luck had left the building for Central.
In the middle of the floor to Cummings. Merrimack up two with the ball. Cummings behind his back, into the lane, scoops it up and in. Ian Cummings gives Merrimack a 4-point lead. Doc Wheeler wants a timeout, 36-22.
The game sort of turned when Danny McKillop picked up either his fourth foul or his fifth, I can't remember, but that's when he had to stop guarding Jalen Leroy.
6 minutes to play. Up top, McDonald trying to answer, air ball, Leroy offensive rebound, puts it up, and the foul. 3-point. McKillop's got 4 for Merrimack.
Leroy scored either 12 or 14 points in the fourth quarter, and that's what really started. He sort of put Central on his back, as he had a few times during that season.
Gets the pick from Lewis. McCory's going to drive. McCory high off the window, no. Tipped up and in by, I think it was Leroy, and it was. And he's got 20 points since.
Merrimack was actually up by 2 in regulation, and Central had the ball, and Jalen Leroy went to the basket, and he got fouled.
The arc up top, Leroy. Leroy's going to drive. Leroy into the lane. It's a foul. The basket went in, but I don't think that's...
And he hit 2 big free throws to tie the game, which I think most people forget about because of, you know, how it went to overtime, what happened in overtime. But, you know, he came up big in that stretch.
Championship game. Leroy's second is good. We're tied at 49. 31 and a half seconds left to go. Merrimack.
You knew it was going to come down to maybe a call or one team executing when they really needed to in the end, and that's exactly what happened.
59-55, final 15 seconds. Here's Kerr. Kerr's going to drive. Kerr the kick. Wojak corner 3. It's off the mark. It goes! It bounced high in the air and dropped through. And Merrimack is within 1, 59-58, with 5.8 seconds left to go.
I remember a timeout, you know, towards the end of overtime. You know, so Merrimack could get the last shot, and the kid that came in, Noah Bagelman, hadn't played a second. He hadn't played a second the entire game.
I remember McIsaac and I were doing the game at half court, and I told him Noah Begelman's in the game for one reason only, and that's to shoot the 3. Begelman was a kid. I remember early in the season against Winnicott, he had some like 4 or 5 threes, and I texted Jay McKenna at 11 o'clock at night and said, "Who's Noah Begelman?" And he wrote me back, "That's what we want to know." Nobody knew who this kid is, but he could shoot, and that's why he was in the game at the end.
A handful of seconds left, and Merrimack had to get the ball, you know, from underneath the basket and get it into the front court and get a shot off, and Zach Kerr had the basketball, and he kind of mishandled it a little bit.
Having trouble getting it in bounds. They finally do. Here's Kerr. 3 seconds. 3.
Way, but if you fumble a handoff, everything's turned off. Your time is off by half a second. That's all it takes, and that's exactly what happened. Kerr, I think, wanted to take that shot, but when Begelman got it, he just had about a half a second to get that ball up there. He almost pumped a little bit in the air when he released it, but I remember when he released it, it looked good immediately.
Lost control, and they're not going to get it off. Begelman hits a shot. Does it count?
I clearly saw that he had the ball in his hands when the time expired, and he shot it and it went in, and Merrimack kids were like going crazy. The Merrimack fan section was going crazy. They thought they had won the championship on the last second 3-pointer.
He lost control, and they're not going to get it off. Begelman hits a shot. Does it count? No, they say it doesn't count. Noah Begelman hit a 3. The Merrimack crowd celebrating.
My initial reaction, just from my vantage point and seeing the red light in the corner and seeing where the ball was in his hands, was that it was a second too late. And I immediately started filming, you know, Central celebrating. And then I saw kind of in the corner of my eye, Merrimack celebrating. So I was kind of like, I don't know where to go with this shot.
When he released it, I would have bet the mortgage on this house we're in right now that he got it off in time. And I was screaming and losing my mind, Merrimack wins it, Merrimack wins it. I didn't even have my eye on the referee.
I remember the ball going up. I remember it looked good right away, but I felt like it was a half a second late. McIsaac, right next to me, felt like it was a half a second on time. It was early. That goes to show you how close that was.
Off, Begelman hits a shot. Does it count? No, they say it doesn't count. Noah Begelman hit a 3. The Merrimack crowd celebrating. The Merrimack team thinks they won. The officials say no. Central holds on. They win 60-58.
Great thing is I've seen officiating, whether it be 9-year-olds playing softball or a game of this magnitude or football. If you're an official, you got to make the play immediately, make the call immediately, and that's exactly what he did. There was no hesitation. The official ran in and said that ball was late.
The stills on Jen's camera, I mean, it was fairly conclusive, but you know, nobody would have blamed the guy if he missed it because it was, you know, it was a split second, but he got it right, and man, that was pretty surreal. You know, from ecstasy to agony for Merrimack, and you know, the flip side of that for Central, just an amazing ball game.
I remember reading Michael Hawley's book about that 2001 Patriot team that won the Super Bowl, and Bill Belichick said, "Can you believe we won a championship with this team?" And that's the way those Central coaches felt. I remember talking to Billy Krantz, longtime assistant coach, and Doc Wheeler, taking nothing away from that team, but that was a flawed basketball team. They didn't have size. They weren't great in any one area, but they grinded it out, and there's always the DNA with Central kids. They're so tough, and they're mentally strong kids. They go through a lot over in Manchester, and in the end, they're a half a second better than Merrimack.
I mean, this is the best time of the year for me. It's a grind. It can be. You're doing your fourth game in 5 nights, and you don't know what gym you're in, and you don't know how you got there. You don't remember driving to the gym. But once the ball gets thrown up in a big game, if you're at Plymouth State, if you're at UNH, if you're at SNU, if you're in one of those small gyms where they have to turn people away at the door, and there's just nothing like New Hampshire high school basketball.
But just being able to be a part of it somehow, it's really gratifying to me. And when the season's over, when I'm driving back from UNH, and it usually hits me when I get on like 101, out of UNH, and I'm heading back to the Manchester area, and I'm kind of driving, and I'm thinking to myself, man, it's over. That was a whirlwind over the last, 4 or 5 months of this high school basketball season, culminating with March, which truly is madness for us covering all those games. And I feel saddened by it. I feel a little bit empty inside.
It's exciting coming up. We see both sides of it. I've had kids literally cry on my shoulders that I've covered for 4 years because you just get to genuinely just like and care about, and you see and get their heart ripped out. I had my heart ripped out a long time ago too, so I know exactly how it feels. The truth is, 99% of us have our hearts ripped out and we lose our last game. But jumping around with those kids, with Pete doing his undefeated dance, or me in the locker room with these guys, I remember being there with the Littleton kids last year. It's special. It's special, and that's why high school basketball is so special. There isn't anything else like it, high school sports.
What I really love about the playoffs is really anything can happen. One of my favorite sports quotes about, underdogs and just unpredictability of sports is actually from Little Giants, and the Giants are getting beat at halftime, and their coach, is telling them his brother is the coach of the other team, and he's telling about how he used to race his brother all the time, and his brother would always beat him, but this one time he beat him. And he said, the Cowboys are probably better than you, and they will probably beat you 99 out of 100 times. But 99 out of 100 times still leaves one time for you to win.